can revel in that and enjoy it and call on it. The bad guys knew who he was. And here are all the good guys going, who's this? This sounds like another cautionary tale to me. Beware of thinking you're too much the good guy, and beware of this. I only want my truth to be this. It is important for us to have an open mind about what we read and hear and compare one thing to the other so that we get a whole picture of who God is. None of the other Gospels picture Christ as quite the deity that Mark does, and that's so neat. Now, it does say that there was a little bit of drama in church that day, besides the fact that the speaker actually spoke with authority and told the evil spirit to actually get out. By modern Pentecostal standards, someone was speaking in tongues. The unclean spirit had convulsed him and cried out with a loud voice and came out of him. So he followed orders, but he made a show of doing it. And everyone in the congregation that day went, "Oh, how amazing!" And just like people do today, everybody talked. The most rapid form of communication on earth is gossip. And it still is today. And not only that, but we can get on our phone and we can gossip with anybody in the entire world on social media. It makes being able to question our sources an even more important thing than it ever was before. Oh, you heard this. Well, where did you hear it from? Or, well, I never heard that before. Okay, so where are you getting your information from that they didn't tell you this, that, or the other? God never minds us asking a question, especially when we're ready to hear his answer. Does anyone else have a Bible, and would they be willing to read the next passage? Okay, Mom. You're stuck with it. We're going to start at 29 and go to 31.
Now, as soon as they had come out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came and took her by the hand, lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her. And she served them.
There is so much to enjoy in these few short verses. So here, Mark actually does set the scene just a little bit. He tells you the cast of characters. There's Jesus, there's Simon, there's Andrew, there's James, there's John, there's Simon's wife and Simon's mother-in-law in a little teeny house. We're assuming it's a little teeny house. It's at least one house. So they've all gathered together for an afternoon lunch, but we've got a problem. Mother-in-law is sick. Now this is before the age of penicillin, but not before the age of inchinsia and other various and sundry herbs and spices that have been around since, let's see, the Garden of Eden. But it's still never a good thing, way back when, to have a fever. It's just not. This is before the age of air conditioning, y'all. And hey, people did live before that. Honest and true, they did. So here, another preconceived notion that we're running into at this, so we've got this cast of characters. We've got Simon's mother-in-law. Now, anyone who's ever been married and had a mother-in-law, is that always a fun relationship? Sometimes it can be, but apparently not always. And so they rush up to tell the master that mother-in-law is sick. Now, this is probably part because, well, you've got to tell somebody they're sick because it could spread. You know, so stay away from mother-in-law. She's sick. We've got to keep her out. And Jesus, instead of going, oh my word, keep her away from me. Keep her away from me, because this is also way back when in Jewish culture, you kept the genders as separate until they got married, and then it was okay to be in the same house together. It's amazing how we can, swing from one side to the other as pendulums go and never manage to find the middle. Apparently, it's a human thing, not just an American thing. The idea of segregating gender as thoroughly as Jewish tradition does. And Jesus, in, again, a complete 180 from tradition. Instead of going, keep those germs away from me, goes right up to her, takes her by the hand and says, oh, we want you to feel better. So he gets her up, and not only does she get right up, fever's gone, germs are gone, she goes, oh, well here, let me get you lunch. There's a lot to just wrap our brains around, even though it's the action stuff, because that's Mark. He's writing to the young people. He's doing the action stuff because, hey, that's what he likes. And again, we've got healing. So we've got the healing in the morning with the casting out the spirit, and we've got the healing in the afternoon with mother-in-law and the fever. So let's read what happens next. Madame in the pink jacket, I'm afraid I don't know your name. What is your name?
I'm
Cheryl?
Sharon. Yes, S-H-E-R-O-N.
Miss Sharon, could you please read 32 to 34?
And we are reading from Mark chapter 1, and we're reading verse 32, you said?
Yes, please.
32 to 34. And I'm reading from the New International Version. That evening after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door. And Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was.
So Mark's setting the scene again, but again, he's not doing a lot of dressing up the scene with, they're in the house and all that sort of stuff. It was, so by sunset on Sabbath, the whole town of Capernaum shows up at Simon's door going, I need to be healed. I got this sickness, I've got this illness, I've got this demon. And Jesus heals and casts out all evening long. we get now, check me if you have a different impression. It says, they brought to him all who were sick and were demon-possessed. This doesn't sound like it was a little crowd to me. Does it sound like it might have been a little crowd to anybody?
Yes, it does.
It does sound like it could have been a little crowd?
It's a big crowd.
Big crowd?
They said all who were sick and demon-possessed.
And when you're talking about sick, you've got someone who's carrying them with them. So we have, I'm getting the picture that there, it was a pretty good-sized crowd. And there's some consistency here. Jesus heals them, and he's binding the demons. No, you don't get to talk. You don't get to influence or counter-influence my people. It's their job to recognize me without you saying anything. Since God has a tendency to be kind of consistent, I'll bet that's the same way he is today. He's not going to just let the bad guys speak. He's going to let us recognize him with our own eyes and our own experience. That's kind of a neat thing. Receive that experience. It's the ones who were actually, they had to put in the work. They had to go to Simon's house. Throughout his ministries, if you seek, you'll find. Come looking for me, I'm there. And that is a nifty thing, because it's still true today. If we go looking through his scriptures, he's there to be found. But there are many beautiful things to be found in it, like the supernatural power of God who could speak an entire world into existence. That's a beautiful. What he looked was. And what Mark is trying to tell his audience is that that same powerful creator has sent he can speak and the demons can't. Prophets. So let's and 35, 30. Does anybody have a Bible?
And in the morning, rising up a great while before day, he went out and departed into a solitary place, and there prayed. And Simon and they that were with them followed after him. And when they had found him, they said unto him, All men seek for thee. And he said unto them, Let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also, for therefore came I forth. And he preached in their synagogues throughout all Galilee, and cast out devils.
So something caught Mark's eye about the habits of Jesus. Prayed. Morning before the sun came up and went way off by himself. My version says that they I'm going off to pray, leave me be. Or I'm going off to pray now, because praying in the middle of the street was a big thing back then. Or at least we've been given to understand that. So Jesus, again, 180 from tradition, goes off somewhere quiet. Well, we're going to guess that it's quiet, because they had to actually go looking for him to find him. So it wasn't out in the middle of everybody. And he had a chat with his dad. That sounds like something that we should be in the habit of today, too. Pick a time of day. Doesn't have to be morning. But pick a time of day to be off by ourselves and pray. God is good, and I am in a unique position to be able to do this kind of thing when I'm sitting in somebody's yard pulling weeds. Ain't nobody around me. And God and I have lots of good chats around about then. And apparently the ants think I'm delicious. We can do that throughout our day too. When we're off by ourselves, chat with God. Mom had a phenomenal habit when she was driving about 30 years ago. Mommy, you don't drive anymore. But every single red light, she would pray.
It's amazing how many green lights you get when you pray at the red.
And that was what Mom found, is after she started praying at all the red lights, funny how it was always green lights. Devil didn't want her praying.
Somebody needed prayer, so I would start praying if I hadn't been up to that point.
Yep. We can always find times to be with our Father, to be connected to Him. And He wants that. He wants direct communication with us. It's a healthy habit. Here's something again where Mark is contrasting what the behavior of your typical person would be versus Jesus Christ. So the four who have been identified in Mark as disciples say, everybody's talking about you. Come on, we need to, you need to go out and keep talking to these crowds. Jesus goes, actually, we're going to move on. Instead of just sitting here and absorbing, all the wonderful vibes that we're getting from all the people who are gathering up in this town, we're going to keep rolling to people who haven't heard from me yet. Jesus didn't come to be famous. He knew he was going to end up that way. But that's not why he came here originally. His mission was a lot different. And yet he knew, because gossip is the fastest form of communication on the planet, always has been, that when he went to these other cities, people were going to talk. Some of that talk would actually be useful. Hey, I heard this guy. You need to hear about it. And some of it would not. And the proportion of the good versus the bad, well, that's probably not much different than it is today. Now, the last bit that our lesson has us doing, so we've gone through the first Sabbath, where he has miraculously healed someone or cast out a demon, where he has healed a mother-in-law, where he has healed most of the folk in a town, and now he's moving on. And so we don't know exactly how many days down the road this is. But it says, because it just says, and he went preaching in their synagogues throughout all Galilee and casting out demons. We love Mark, but he is not into setting a lot of exacting detail. Now a leper came to him, imploring him, kneeling down to him and saying, if you are willing, you can make me clean. If you are willing, you can make me clean. So there has been enough time passed that someone with a terminal disease who has been banished from society because he has a terminal disease that sadly spreads, and at this point we don't have penicillin, is coming to him. I know that I already have enough faith in you, Jesus of Nazareth, that if you want to, you can heal me. Then Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I am willing, be cleansed. Two really interesting things are happening in this passage. I wonder if this caught anybody else's ear. First off, he's willing to touch a leper. I mean, this is a communicable disease, and it's a really bad one that nobody could cure. And secondly, the Jewish folks were always really, really fussy about how they used the words I am. Because that is how they spoke about God. The I am. Way back in Exodus, when the burning bush is speaking to Moses, the voice on the burning bush tells him, tell your brother, I am the I am. So the fact that Jesus is saying, I am willing, be cleansed. Jesus was making a declaration there. Our American ears don't hear it quite as well as a Jewish ear, but he was making quite the statement there. And probably most of it is English, which is not the world's greatest language for speaking with a great deal of specificity, but he was declaring, yes, I am God, and I absolutely want to heal you. Does anyone here think that God is different today? Right. He wants to heal us. If we are willing to believe that he wants that, yeah, he absolutely wants that. As soon as Jesus had spoken, immediately the leprosy left him, the guy with the leprosy, and he was cleansed. And Jesus, okay, I'm paraphrasing just a little bit so that the he's in the capital letters can come through the auditory. And Jesus warned the leper and sent him away at once, saying, see that you say nothing to anyone. Go your way, show yourself to the priest, offer your cleansing for those things that Moses commanded as a testimony to them. However, the leper went out, began to proclaim it freely, and spread the matter so that Jesus could no longer openly enter the city, but was outside in the deserted places, and they came to Jesus from every direction. Okay, so this seems kind of odd, doesn't it? In the ear, Jesus goes, okay, don't tell anybody I just saved your life. Okay? Go to the priest, get the priest to declare you clean, do what Moses told you to take to the priest, to have yourself declared clean. Got it? What does a leper do? Not that. There was a lot of ritual around leprosy. It wasn't just that you were sick, because way back when, it was not good enough that you were just sick. It was also something spiritual. You were unclean. In a slightly heretical framework, sometimes I wonder if God used unclean to convince the people of that time, no, really, I mean this, do it. So, Jesus is saying, please, pretty please, go make the priest happy, go to him first, do what the rules say. And so, but the leper, no, he's happy, he's thrilled, he's clean. He's going to live. He's allowed to be in society again, only if he had gone the other direction, it probably would have worked better. So, because Jesus has touched this leper, he's unclean until sunset. He's not allowed inside the city gates because he's unclean until sunset. But that doesn't matter. Everyone goes, oh, you're there? Fine, we can travel. And away they go. It wasn't quite what Jesus originally envisioned, but funny how when things zig, God can zag. If our original idea of the way something should come about doesn't happen, have faith. Be calm. God's got it. Beware, he has a sense of theater about our lives. And just enjoy the show, because it's going to be something really neat and amazing. Have we ever encountered today, this day and age, where God did something and someone went out and proclaimed it freely? I got to say, those instances are getting less and less. That peer pressure to not talk about God has gotten us really used to not speaking about God. That's unfortunate. That might be something we could work on just a little. I get being diplomatic. I get reading your audience. But the ability to talk about God is pretty darn important. Yes, Mom? I know, I'm watching.